Ladies and gentlemen, friends, colleagues and listeners, here we are. We've got another podcast now. We've got a friend of the show, somebody who's been on before, and it's always a pleasure to talk to him. We've got Lionel van der Walt, who's the Chief Commercial Officer with PayCargo. Lionel, as always, my friend, an absolute pleasure.
Likewise, Chris, I can't wait to have this chat with you today. In actual fact, leading up to this, I was really looking forward to catching up because, I wanted to rub in some of that rugby wins that we've had against some of our competitors like New Zealand. But I know you don't want to talk about that. You want to talk more about business here. So
no, that's fine. I've got a Jonah Lomu signed shirt, which is up on the wall to my left. So I always look at that for inspiration. And he wouldn't be too happy with some of the results. But let's see what happens now. We've got another fresh group of games coming up. We've got another nice young number 10 who's going to be given his reins, I hope, now. So we'll see what happens. I'm just trying to think now. We're playing you guys in November, huh?
Correct. We got a game. I think we're starting off playing Wales, and then we've got Scotland and then England. Yeah.
Are you over for it?
No, unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be over, but I will certainly be watching.
Yeah, I've got tickets for it.
Hey.
Yes.
You had to rub that in.
Yes, my friend. Yes, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. That's all.
We're gonna need a couple of selfies.
Yeah. Don't worry, you'll get them, my friend. Especially if the score's going in the right direction. Right, sir. Now, PayCargo. Obviously, I think anybody who's familiar with it knows it's going from strength to strength. But for those who might not be as familiar as some, do you want to just give us a little bit of a quick overview as to what PayCargo is, what you guys do, and why you think it's so beneficial for the industry at the moment?
Sure, and by this time, I really hope it's only a handful of people out there around the world who do not know who PayCargo is, because if I've done my job properly, everybody knows the brand and everybody knows the value we're adding. But for those who don't, PayCargo, we are a financial tech company, and what we do is we actually drive sustainability and economic growth. A lot of people always say, PayCargo is just a payments company, but it's way bigger than that.
Yeah.
We basically use technology and people to drive transformation and modernization of payments within and across the logistics industry. And we've been around since 2009, but really over the last two, three years, and especially with COVID, the company has expanded exponentially.
Yeah.
And something that I always also tell people is, the difference between PayCargo and any other institution out there that's facilitating payments in the industry is that we are a company that's made up of logistics industry experts. So it's not just financial experts, and we are multimodal. So we really take that deep knowledge of the industry that we have, combine that with the financial industry knowledge, and then drive solutions that cross over all modes so that it's seamless in terms of international payments.
Yeah. Okay. And obviously, especially you mentioned COVID, and especially at the moment, cash and how we manage our money is so crucial to every single business. So, you've got certain options with overnight debit, you've got prepaid funds, credit card, 15 or 30-day credit. You've got all sorts of vehicles that people can use. And I'm sure as well, as we develop further, this option of what products you buy and how quickly you pay them will influence any discount or incentives moving forward.
Absolutely. And something that's interesting here is obviously, as you mentioned with COVID, a lot of companies were cash strapped. And especially on the forwarding side, a lot of the smaller, sometimes even the medium forwarding companies, they didn't get any time with the carriers. The carriers were either just too busy, or the forwarders just didn't have enough business with them to enable them to secure credit with the carriers, or even have the carriers talking to them, allowing them to do business. So basically with PayCargo stepping into that space, what we're doing is we actually, by giving them credit, we're opening up business both for the carriers, bringing in new business for them, but allowing these forwarders to get access to the marketplace, which is phenomenal. And we're also working with some of the carriers. They're giving us lists of those forwarders that are contacting them, who they've turned away. And then basically we reach out and then allow them and enable them to get the business that they were looking for.
Yeah. So you spoke earlier about sustainability I'm talking about sustainability of the business and also cutting down on paper transactions, et cetera. But you're also able to now speed up the process. So you've got better capacity optimization. You've got less queuing. You've got better organization because of the way people can actually manage their payments and their release of shipments once the process has been completed.
Absolutely, and you're right. The obvious point that people always think about is that we're removing paper out of the system, which is great. I mean, that's a really important role. But over and above that, if you think about it, what we're doing by speeding up the payment process, we're bringing efficiencies in on the cargo side. So dwell time that you have at the airports with trucks, for example, and the emissions are going down because they're speeding up. We're not holding up any processes and we're expediting those payments. Now, it cannot be viewed in a silo, right? So you have to take a systems approach to this because payments are just one component across the value chain. And I always say that's one of the biggest issues we have in this industry is that we tend to be slightly siloed and we do great things in certain areas. But if you do not have that whole value chain connected, smoothed out and working efficiently, all the value you're generating in one, you only may be getting 20, 30, 40% of what you could be getting as value. So we really make sure that we're connecting with all the other stakeholders, speaking with them and trying to facilitate some of that interconnected value add.
Yeah. Which and you're right, because so many people are talking about what they can do, but they're talking about what they can do independently, subject to their product or the uptake. But if people collectively looked at how the combination, so like a team, so whether it be forwards or backs, what they could do, whether it's either with the flair of being really innovative or just getting stuck in and doing the hard graft, if they get together and they endorse, what everybody's talking about now with collaboration and digitization and data sharing, and they've got the confidence to do that, they could actually create their own, like instead of first mile, last mile, they could do a green mile, whereby what they're doing collectively is preventing all these other bottlenecks and holdups and queuing and all those other issues.
Agreed. And I think this is a really important point because, if we want to be sustainable moving forward, you cannot have this individual siloed kind of approach. And it brings me on to the topic again of, cargo community systems, because I think that is one of those areas that really helps to facilitate that sort of seamless, open approach across all of the aspects on the value chain. The key, Chris, however, is, it's very interesting to look what's happening in Europe versus in the US. In Europe, what I'm seeing is a lot of the airports authorities are taking a very strong leadership role in driving cargo community systems. And that is essential because you really need somebody that's taking that lead and driving it. If you leave this open to a consensus approach where everybody has to agree before we move forward, you're never going to get anywhere. I mean, I think you know this as good as me. This industry is great, but there are so many opinions out there. Now, in the US, the problem that I'm seeing is a lot of the airports authorities are basically taking the approach of, we are not the ones that should be leading the rollout of these projects because we just the landlord. It's the tenants who have to do it, and I think that is very short-sighted.
I've been saying for a long time, Lionel, that I think that the biggest influencers or enablers now, post-COVID, with reflection on risk and all the things that happen, has got to be the airport and its own ecosystem. And if an airport decides to have its own, shall we say, performance commitment charter from all its tenants and some code of practice and rules, and even to the point of future-proofing facilities, insisting on certain criteria, which will also help with margins. If they have certain criteria and they work together as an airport, that's then how they can compete with other airports for various carriers or even support services and associated businesses subject to the ground that they've got available. But the airports can make such a big difference. And I don't understand why they don't get up and do it. I really don't. I mean, obviously some are government owned, some are privately owned, some are, you look at America, it's, it's a very, shall we say, complex model. but why on earth they don't now take the lead, because they could do so well now and the time is perfect.
The ownership to me is irrelevant here, and it should not be a factor in this. Saying that it's a complex model and using that as an excuse from their side, I think is once again short-sighted and wrong. For me, if you think about what we are doing within the industry, we're driving economies. Yep. If you stop tomorrow all air cargo flying around the world, what is that economic impact, and how does it not only impact the economies of countries, but the lifestyle and everything we take for granted as people on the ground, right? The flowers that we're buying, the medicines that we're receiving, that new Apple Watch that we want to get as soon as it's been released. All of those sort of things would not be possible without air cargo. So for me, I really think airports, no matter what the ownership model is and who's driving it, need to stop thinking about cargo as just a pure logistics movement at their facility, and think of it in this broader context of driving economies and the sustainability and the responsibility towards the people in countries and their local communities. So I'm very passionate, as you can hear.
Yes, yeah, and why not? That's what you need.
Yeah,
but I totally agree with you, though, and I think now more than ever, you hear about talent drain, and you hear about experience, going out of the business, and people now deciding to maybe try their own things or change an industry, etc. There's a lot of experience going out of the business, and how we get the right level back. One of the ways is being proud of what's been done as part of the supply chain. And again, coming back to an airport, airports have got such big communities that, that orbit around the airports. And if people say, oh, look, he works at Los Angeles Airport or Miami Airport or London Airport or whatever, if they associate certain positivity about that, it makes the people, the chest come out and they're proud of where they work. But we've got to get people realizing what a wonderful, wonderful career supply chain is.
Yeah, and now you bring me on one of my other pet peeves. The pet peeve I have is that we've been pretty poor at it, and I know I'm being very critical, but we have been pretty poor at really selling the value of our industry to external stakeholders.
Yep.
As COVID came about, the light was shining brightly on our industry, and we did tremendous things. So we did start really emphasizing that value to governments and the man on the street. People have been seeing it. But one of the aspects that seems to be lost sometimes is that our frontline staff and those people in the back offices that are really driving what we are doing in the industry don't always get the same message also about what is the value of their specific roles and how it's really contributing to this effort and all this good news that we're delivering around the globe with what we're doing. So I think we really need to be doing a lot more, recognizing the staff on the front lines, making sure they understand their value add, getting them proud, like you say, getting that chest out there about, I'm working in an industry that's making a difference.
Yep, no, 100%. A few years ago, I did an awareness training platform, and I titled it "A Day in the Life of a Piece of Cargo." And we got people from all the different divisions within the company to be mixed up. And what we did was we went through what would happen if something wasn't done correctly in the experience of a day in the life of a piece of cargo. And we put the journey. So people started to appreciate what went on before it came to them, what went on, why it was important that they did certain things within a set period of time. So whether it was with Cargo IQ, with the triggers, whether it was with customer service, whether it was with just acceptance on all the different things. And people really, really enjoyed it because they could see that they were part of a storyline. So they weren't just in the crowd, they were a character that when it came to them, they had to perform accordingly. And I think if people feel that they're part of a team and they know that when it comes to them, whether they're a left back, a right back, a centre forward, a wing, a centre, or, number 8, whatever it is, they know that when it comes to them, they've got to perform to allow the rest of the team to perform as well as they possibly can. And I think we've got to be very careful now when you look at the bad PR and publicity that's there with shipping and container shortages and the prices of containers. And then you're looking at all these creative surcharges. And then people are saying we've got a lack of staff. So in one breath, you've got limited capacity, you've got high costs, you've got poor service, and you've got very bad customer experience. So we've got to be careful that all the good that's come from what supply chain can deliver, especially with the emphasis that's been on it from COVID, doesn't get dragged into the mire and the mud, as a result of, shall we say, this purple patch, because some people are very, very, very successful at the moment, and they've got to remember it should be consumer driven and it should be customer experience driven.
Yeah, and the other aspect also that's just as important, getting back to the people on the ground again, is that success that these companies are having around the globe. We need to make sure that it's not at the cost of the mental health of our employees. A lot of the frontline staff nowadays are working extremely long hours. They're working in very hazardous conditions. They're not working, in a nice, comfortable office. They're out on the front line, especially when we're starting to approach the winter months again, in our part of the hemisphere. And I really think we need to make sure that management is taking care of employees, looking at it very differently and finding a balance. There's a framework for sustainability out there that's basically got three components. It's people, then it's basically
people, profit, and planet.
Exactly. So you got it. You know exactly where I'm heading with this. And I think profits is great. The sustainability part in terms of the planet is great, but we also need to make sure that we're balancing that out to the people side. And sometimes I think we're a bit poor on that also. So we need to take really care. And if you look at what happened with Praters, right? So you had this new Prater concept that came out, and frontline staff were expected to just basically get on planes and drag cargo around without the right tools and equipment, without the right standard operating procedures.
Yep.
It was really tough on them, and it's becoming more and more difficult to find good people working in the industry. So I think that's an area we really, really need to take care of.
100%, Lionel. And not to use your company's name, PayCargo, but I think as a result of not PayCargo, but people who are paying for cargo, there needs to be an ethical or a care contribution or reinvestment. So you need to pay back and you need to pay forward. So you need to do things for those that have already done and given that extra effort, but you've got to do as much, if not more, for those that are going to come into the industry, looking forward. And I think if it was me now, whether it would be a PR exercise or whether it be genuine, some of that percentage of profits, I would be looking to show that it was going back into either, good welfare and support of your staff, better training, helping people to be different leaders, helping people to understand that, if you're not a leader, you need to be a supporter, and you need to give whoever is a leader the opportunity to do so because you're supporting them, not blocking them. So there's so many differences now that people have got to take into the mix. And there's so many political pressures and doing the right thing. It's a minefield out there now. So I think now's the time before people get so frustrated that companies who are making a very, very, very good return, they should now start allocating some of those funds for payback and pay forward.
Yeah, and what I can tell you is that, it's success is once again not an excuse just to become complacent, right? Yep. So for our company's perspective, I can tell you that there's a couple of things we are doing. We are basically communicating every single day out or to our employees, and we've got a once weekly message.
Yep.
That goes to the staff, and it's 100% focused on mental health, keeping them happy in the workplace, really understanding their needs, addressing key points. And then one thing that is really amazing about PayCargo is our global CEO, Eduardo Del Riego, and our board did a tremendous job of making sure that we're putting programs in place to ensure that each and every one of our staff members are actually getting benefit from the value of the company. So they're all getting equity down the line within the company. And I think that's so critical.
That's brilliant.
And then the other piece that I think is just as important, Chris, is giving back to your community and the industry. So as an example, what we're doing at PayCargo is we're very involved with Florida International University.
Excellent.
Most people don't know this, but we've actually funded money into a professorship at the university. And the reason we did that was really to get them to focus the light more on areas within logistics programs that are traditionally not well recognized. So for example, air cargo, if you're going to any university and you look at the logistics program, you're lucky if you see air cargo mentioned, and if it is, it's just a very light touch.
Yes,
So by doing this, we're funding it, but with that requirement that they're shifting some of the focus on these areas.
Yep.
And then we go broader. So we've actually also basically funded the building of the women's tennis facility at Florida International University. It's really about giving back to the community in areas where we think it's really important, giving back to veterans. We're sponsoring or donating to vet dogs in the US, for example. So there's a lot that we're doing to really give back to the community. And that's it's a mental mindset within a company that if you're successful or not, if you're not giving back part of the success that you've received out of the community, it's a failure. And I'm looking at the new generation that's coming out. I look at my daughter and the young people out there. They're very, very critical, and they don't want to deal with or work with companies that are not sustainable and responsible. So I think you can still maybe get away with not doing it today, but in a year or two, it's going to become more and more crucial to be really taking these sort of approaches seriously.
Yeah, I was on a panel. 2 weeks ago, and it was with how interviewees are now becoming more demanding of the companies that they're looking to get a job with, yes, and the things that they were asking, and they're so forward with it now. It's almost as if if the company doesn't answer it in the right way, even if they're desperate for that job, they wouldn't take it. Exactly.
Yeah, and we're seeing the same thing. So I think it's when you're hiring staff, it's not an easy thing, as you know. I mean, you've done a lot of interviews and hired people, but I think it's becoming more complex because it's nowadays not just about the company wanting to find the right talent. And I can tell you, we're extremely fussy. So when we're hiring people, it takes a long time to get them on board because we go through so many iterations to make certain it's not just about the skills, but it's the fit and the cultural fit within the company and how they view the world and how they want to contribute to it. But at the same time, we're seeing exactly what you're saying. We're seeing people being really, really focused on asking those questions, very deep questions, that sometimes surprises you about, how are you adding value in the broader industry? Where do you see the company? What can the company do more of to better society and that? And it's a wonderful thing. I think it's the way we should be going.
Yeah, no, it's good. And as long as like everything, as long as it's balanced, it doesn't want to swing from, one side of the seesaw to the other. As close in the middle as possible so that it's balanced. But it's definitely coming. Now, I think you were lucky enough to be in Dublin last week.
Yes, I was.
Yeah, that's a great city. I love it. How was the World Cargo Symposium?
Incredible. So I was super happy when IATA announced that it was shifting to Dublin, because I really think that, taking it into a central point like Ireland that has got easy access, their COVID restrictions had progressively been lifted. So it was really easy for people to get in and out of the country with little restrictions. It made for a very successful event. I believe we had just on 600 people in person over the 3 days or 4 days we were there. And it was, for me, other than the opening session in the opening plenary with Willie Walsh, and then, I also moderated a session in the opening plenary and the closing. Other than those sessions, I was in meetings every single minute of every single day. It was incredible. So very, very worth our while being there. And then, as you know, Chris, just, walking down a corridor, running into an old colleague and catching up, those sort of relationship elements that we miss, in these virtual environments. is something that I really appreciated there, building those relationships. And then, when I was speaking to people also about, it's different now when you're on a stage again, speaking and moderating, it's, having real people in the room with that you're getting feedback from, watching their reaction as you're moving is really delightful. It's nice. I appreciate that.
I think, I think it's great. And please God now, if people can start to make more of an impact and keep the various variants at bay and the numbers down, some of the conferences that people are so desperate to attend now, it's going to be a very successful couple of years.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that, we're seeing the restrictions that's hopefully going to be lifted up here in the US soon. And around the globe, I am starting to see that progressing in other countries also. What I'm hoping for is that we're really going to see the international travel side readjusting, coming back, because in the US right now, I'm guessing we're at about 95% of the domestic travel that we had previously. Slightly different. So we've got different routes, we've got different plane types. As you know, people have been changing the gauge and types of aircraft they're flying. Yeah. But the big gap still that impacts our industry is the international side, with all that belly hold that we need. So that's something I hope is going to come back soon. And I can tell you that what really hurt me now is flying and getting a flight, because there's limited capacity, the cost of international travel has just skyrocketed. So I'm praying that we get everybody flying again, we're getting more capacity and things can normalize, because then I might be able to join you for that rugby game.
Yes. Well, you'd be more than welcome, my friend. But apart from the World Cargo Symposium and everything that went on there, to be in Dublin, I'm sure you sampled a pint of God's own nectar.
Indeed, yeah, and it wasn't only the Guinness. It was, I love Bulmers. So cider is also something.
Bulmers you can get in a can anywhere, but you can't get that beautiful oil as good a taste as you can in Dublin.
No, I agree with you, but I must correct your statement. That can you cannot get in the United States. So for me, it is a treat getting.
It's a treat, yeah.
Because the ciders, are very different to what you would have in a Bulmers. But you are right. When I'm there and you have a Guinness and you come back to the US and you have a Guinness, there's a clear differential between the taste of the two. So, and then, the other side of it is, and I want to just mention this, one thing that really stood out, I love Ireland. I'm there often. The people are incredible. The whole atmosphere and the Irish culture is tremendous. It's so welcoming. But what stood out for me at the World Cargo Symposium this time around was we were at the Dublin Convention Centre, and the team that they had working there. So it's not McVeigh, it's not IATA, it's the Convention Centre staff. Their customer service was exceptional, Chris. Let me tell you, it's something that other companies can learn from. Every single person I ran into, no matter what their role was there, they were always smiling, they were always engaging, they were always going, beyond to try and see how they can assist and help. What an awesome experience. Kudos to that team there. It was really a great experience.
Yeah, no, you can't get, I'm biased because of my family, but you can't get better hospitality and a little bit of fun and a twinkle in the eye. And my granddad always used to say, there's only two types of people in the world, those that are and those that wish they were.
Exactly. And then the other thing that I can tell you that was very unique for us was, can you believe this? We were there for a week and we didn't have a drop of rain.
There you go. Well, God, you were definitely blessed.
We were blessed. But you know what they say? In Ireland, it's either raining or it's about to start raining, right?
Exactly, yeah. No, you were blessed, yeah. No, brilliant. Now, with regards to World Cargo Symposium, with regards to what you're doing, so like I said, there's a lot of positivity and quite rightly so now. But you coming back to the point you're making about the 3 Ps, so, people, profit, planet. There's not a great deal you can do to help the planet if you're not making profit and if people don't appreciate that there needs to be a balance between it. You can't just have people attacking those that don't appear to be looking after the planet, etc. It's a fine balance. Now, keeping people's expectations in perspective and also supporting the stresses and the pressures that they're under. what do you think now is necessary moving forward for that balance? Because, I'm also a little bit wary and cautious of, this over corrective and over, compensating for anything that wasn't done properly or whatever happened in the past. So, how are you guys addressing that, and how are you seeing what you're able to do affect other companies?
So yeah, that's a very broad question. There's a lot of aspects to it. I think the key thing here is, number one, we don't take anything for granted. Yeah. So the success that we got today in the marketplace, the current market conditions, all of those we know could change at the drop of a pin, right? Our industry, there's always something happening. And the glory, if I can call it that we've had as the air cargo industry during COVID. Yeah, I'm almost certain that that's going to be short-lived, because as soon as all that capacity that I was begging for comes back, it's just going to be natural for airlines to focus on where the most money is within the business. Yeah. And that's going to be on the passenger side, and the same thing for the airports. So we really need to be forward thinking and preparing ourselves for what's going to come and how that pendulum is going to swing again. Yep. And I think there are, and I will say this, I think there are a lot of forward-thinking companies out there who are looking at this, who are preparing. And what I'm also seeing is a mindset change, Chris. And once again, we get to that. I think the responsibility here is on companies, on the leadership teams of companies. You have to be driving hard to do your justice for your shareholders and for the business. But you have to have, as a leadership team, that broader industry mindset where you're looking at how do we add value in that broader context and keep that balance, as you said, between the 3 Ps. Yep. I can certainly tell you, and anybody who knows PayCargo knows that we always talk about, open collaboration. It's, you cannot view yourself as an island once again. You have to be speaking to as many people as possible to hear what's happening on the ground, and then you need to be willing to open up, share data, collaborate with others. Exactly. It's only going to make us all stronger. Right now, there are companies doing it and they're moving in that direction, but there's still a lot of mistrust and people who, and I think it's the incorrect way of viewing the world, but they're worried that others are going to want to steal their data, and it's going to, get them into a negative competition position where they're going to lose out because they're doing that. And I can tell you, from our experience, the more you open up, the more you're sharing data, the more you're connecting with people, the more you're getting involved in that bigger picture, the greater your success.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I suppose the nature of the service that you provide, people are worried about the security, and certain breaches or cyber or hacking or ransomware or whatever. And that must be a big issue for you guys, to put across and make people feel at ease.
Absolutely. And that's one of the key areas that we do a lot of investment in, is making sure that we've got all of those protections in place. Give you one example. I don't know if you know what a SOC 1 audit is, but it's basically a service organization control audit, and it's a third-party company that comes in, they audit your company, and then once they've done the audit, they provide you with a document that you can then provide to your clients, which gives those clients, the surety that you are taking care of their data and information within your systems, processes, and procedures. So we spent a lot of time doing that. We obviously do a lot of penetration testing as a company. There's some other stuff that we do. I don't want to go into too many details because, once again, there are always people out there who are trying to how you're doing things and use that that information for negative, right? But what I can tell you is it's really a priority for us. But also, something that I think is key, and we when we're explaining to people is, when people think of PayCargo and we are facilitating payments, they think we're actually physically touching the money. The money is flowing into our accounts and into other accounts, and that's not the case. Correct. Yeah. We are using technology to facilitate payments, and what we do here is we basically, all the funds that come from the payers end up in a FBO, a for benefit of account, with our bank, which we have absolutely no access to. And then from there, it flows to the actual vendor. So the only money that flows into our operating bank account is, the fees that are owed to us. It's small nuances like that differentiate us from others, but it's very significant, because if something ever goes wrong, God forbid,
Exactly,
both players and vendors are protected.
Yeah. No, that's so important, and it's so important that people appreciate that, because that it's a very easy concern to be voiced or tabled when people haven't got the full insight.
Absolutely. And once again, you cannot rest on your laurels. Every single day, you're implementing new security measures, but every single day somebody's coming up with a way to bypass that, and they're attacking you. So you always have to be and looking at the forefront and being forward thinking about what can we do, what's available, what's changing in the marketplace. We've got an extremely talented CTO, Doug Schmidt, and Doug's always looking out there, at that horizon, seeing what's coming up. So you have to be ahead of the game. As soon as you become complacent, and you think we've done it, that's when you start losing, and that's when you start compromising the organization. So you cannot do that.
Yeah, and a reflection of two sports that if you are complacent, you're going to get a shock. You've got behind you with the rugby balls on the top of the bookcase and the golf clubs there in the corner.
Yeah, well, this is sanity. That's what that is.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I think once again, getting back to people, you really need to have some kind of a balance between your work and your personal life.
Yeah.
For as an executive team member, it's not always that easy, as I'm sure you know. The higher you get up in the chain, you tend to spend more hours working, and we like doing that because we're passionate about what we're doing. But it is important to make sure that you're spending enough time with your family, but then also getting that physical exercise and having passions.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say to you, however, in saying all of that, is the fact that my golf clubs are here should tell you something. If it wasn't here, it would be in my car and I'd be playing golf. The fact that it's standing here and they're so shiny is maybe a testament to the fact that I'm not getting out there as much as I should.
Yeah, Lionel, I've got you there, mate. Don't worry about that. That was a good answer. Great answer. But I 100% agree with you. And that's something that I think companies as well, they need to put a lot more time into being aware of what their people are doing. And when they're recruiting as well, you know what I mean? I think it's good to know that people have got a passion or a hobby, and it should be encouraged, because it's one thing to rest the body, but, if you don't rest the mind as well, or at least challenge it in different areas, it can also become tired and a little bit stale. So no, it's important.
And just to touch on that, most people don't even realize it. When they realize it, it's way too late, and they're feeling burnt out, they're feeling stressed, and things are going wrong.
Yeah.
And that's one thing where Marta Ramirez, our head of human capital, is doing an incredible job. As I mentioned, every week we are putting out touch point notices to our staff, where we're basically talking to them about different aspects, be it physical health, be it mental health, explaining to them, what the sort of warning signs are that you're heading in the wrong direction, what can be done. But even if you are healthy, these are, there's certain meditation aspects that you can do that you can incorporate into your life, just to maintain your body and maintain yourself, because that's really important. And if we don't do this, and we burn ourselves out, it's also very negative for the organization. So putting an emphasis on those aspects as a company and having that sort of very strong people focus really, really pays off for everybody.
Yeah, no, I agree. Another roundtable exercise that I was doing recently was to do with minimum expectation documents. So instead of just having the old, the good old job description, that the lists get longer or they get more focused subject to what's happened recently, but having minimum expectation documents, which also show the expected behaviors and expected outcomes associated with those minimum expectation documents. I watched the way people related to the exercises that we were doing, and it was quite powerful, because they could see exactly what was expected from the company's perspective. It was nice and simple. And then when it came to the behaviors that were necessary to deliver, they could see the logic and the common sense in it. And then by a matter of fact, the outcomes, then they start to come, and they come quicker and more effectively than if that wasn't explained to them. And, I think...
Yeah, agreed.
you know, a lot of us came into the business and it was like, you know, Fred or Jim or Julie or Janet or whatever will show you what to do. You know, it's on-job training. Then it was handed over to you. Then you learned by your mistakes. There was always obviously somebody who was like the elder statesperson in the office that if you had a problem, you always asked, which probably wasn't the right thing, because if there was updates in the manuals or whatever, they didn't read them, you're still getting old news. But I think, you know, everything needs to modernize now. And, you know, we need to look at things a lot more differently to stay ahead.
Yeah, you know what, it makes me think of, you know, how, and it sounds horrific, but in certain countries, and it might have changed now, but the way that you taught a child, babies, to swim was to just throw them into the pool. And as horrified as a parent, you would just be standing there looking at this, but they'll tell you the baby will come up, and the baby's natural instinct is to come up, they'll roll over and they'll breathing, and then you can take care of it. But there's a different way, a different approach to that, right? Where you can, over time, progressively hold the hand, you know, take a slow approach to it and guide. And I think this is where that is sort of changing. So yes, both work, but you get very different experiences down the line. And I think one of the big things for me is employee engagement and even customer engagement. You know, you're rolling out tools and systems. It's one thing to have a great system out there, but are people already using it to the full extent and to the full capabilities of the system? Most of the time not, right? So making sure, exactly to your point, that people really understand the value of their role, but also what the minimum expectations are, you know, be it in terms of output as well as behaviors, is critically important.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And I also think that the old style of, you know, attending training courses, getting a certificate at the end of it, I think that's also got to modernize, because that's just a memory test. And I think it has to be more blended now with competencies over a period of time to see if there's actually a retention of knowledge. And exactly. I had a discussion with Janet Wallace from Air Canada, and she came up with a term, score on the floor, which I said I was going to steal and use, and I have been. So I don't make any apologies for it. But what she termed score on the floor, that's what's important now. And you know, it's retention of knowledge and capability, not memory testing straight after a course and then presenting those certificates. So I think the way people look at whether you've got experience or competencies and how that's measured, that's also something that needs to change. And for individuals who want to enhance their own self-value, they need to become multi-skilled, upskilled, multi-skilled, and understand the process. And then they'll be of greater value moving forward.
100% agreed. And I think this is a really crucial area again. If I think back on my career, I've attended hundreds of courses and training in that. But if I think back to how much I've really kept and really used, it's a fraction, right? You go on a course, a company spends a lot of money. 2 days later, if you ask the person, what do you recall from the course? It's, if you're lucky, 10% of what was covered there, right? So putting in a new sort of mindset and framework that really ensures that it's sticky and that people are keeping that knowledge and then following up to make sure that they're actually implementing what they learned. That's the missing step here. So, you know, bringing something in or a new perspective that changes that, I think is critical for the industry and for learning, because right now we're wasting a lot of money, in my mind, with all the training courses that people are going to.
Yeah, and also, and that's why it's one of the first stat and marketing is dropped when people haven't got money or when they're not under pressure just to follow some sort of accreditation or regulation. But, you know, it's got to change. And it's no disrespect to any trainer or training academy or accredited training center, not at all. It's just that we've now got to move on and do something differently.
It's a different mindset.
Yeah, sign of the times, my friend. Now, listen, just before we end, let's go back a year. Is PayCargo overachieving, or have you hit all the milestones you expected, or, you know, are things going much better?
So this year we're on track to do 250% growth over last year.
Yeah.
So, which you'll most probably say is phenomenal. To me, I would like to see more. We're an extremely aggressive company, and it's, we've got a very different mindset. PayCargo is not a startup anymore, but we really pride ourselves on still keeping a very strong startup mindset and mentality within the company, and that drives a lot of what we're doing. So yes, very successful. We are happy with what we've achieved, and we're going to be processing around 10 billion USD through the system this year. But no, am I happy? No, I'm never complacent. I'm never content. We're always pushing for more. And, our team will tell you that that's one of the hallmarks of this company. If you want to go work for a company where you're setting budgets and you're talking about, okay, this is what we did last year, let's look at maybe 10, 15%. How do we adjust? At PayCargo, the starting block is, okay, so we want a realistic assessment, but, starting point is 100% growth. Yeah, that's just the start of a discussion. So it's a very different sort of mindset.
Also a lovely environment to be in, especially.
Absolutely. And it's an incredible environment because it's such a progressive, forward-thinking environment. Plus, we're very fortunate enough to have access to everything that we need. So the leadership team ensures that we got the right technologies, everything that will help make us successful. And that's why we get to where we are. But at the same time, once again, we're not complacent. We don't take it for granted. And one of the biggest components there is our relationships within the industry, because nothing would have been possible without all the collaboration we have with our partners. And the success would not have been possible. We are a for-profit company. We can't force people to use us. We have to have a value add. And that value add might be out today, but business shifts tomorrow and it's a different value add. So we're constantly having to make sure that we're attentive to that, speaking to our customers, listening the whole time to what is changing in the marketplace, and then taking action very quickly to be the number one out there that's driving that change and value add.
Yeah. And then re-promoting the successes and the benefits.
Yeah, and sharing it. Once again, just because you're a successful company, don't hold it to yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Speak to the other stakeholders and see how we can help each other to all be successful.
Yeah.
And that's one other thing, Chris, very quickly. I know we're running out of time, but there's something wonderful that I saw at the World Cargo Symposium that's just come up. There's a new program. It's Women in Aviation and Logistics. Yeah. That's come up, which was Emma and Celine that basically brought up this initiative. And what it is they basically got a website up now, and on that website they listing all the female talent within the industry, so that if there's a conference, you basically can get the right talent as a speaker, or if a journalist looking for feedback on a topic, they can get it there. But just as importantly, they're looking for mentors to help these people, progress in their careers. So obviously, I've agreed to be a mentor there, and we're also looking internally at PayCargo to get our younger female employees to see if they want to be mentees, because everybody can grow through a program like this. So once again, giving back, but getting involved and giving your time. It might take an hour or two. I think what they're asking for is 4 hours across 4 months, so an hour a month, something like that. It's not a lot of time, but the impact is huge. So I really think it's keeping your eyes open for opportunities like this, and then using them and giving back.
Yeah. No, I must say I read up on that, and no, it's a great thing. And some of the ladies and some of the colleagues that I've worked with, absolutely brilliant. So to give people a great opportunity, and that's across all spheres, because at the end of the day, what we want to do is balance everything out. But it's great. It's a great initiative. Absolutely superb. And wishing them all success. Now, before we do finish, got one last question for you. What's your handicap?
I'm going to give the cheesy answer, golf. I really don't have an official handicap because I haven't been playing for many years. I only started out again. I don't know if you know.
Come on now. Get the bandit hat off. What's your handicap?
Now, seriously, I was in a car accident about 5 years ago. So I herniated a couple of discs in my neck and lower back. So I haven't been playing. So I'm just getting out there now again. But if I tell you what my objective is to get to 15.
15, to get to 15. All right, so I can pitch roughly where you are as you're not sharing all the data at this particular time. So I will look forward to a game, and then I will pitch what I think it is. But listen, as always, it's a great pleasure, Lionel. It's lovely to see somebody that's so full of enthusiasm, engagement, and appreciation of the industry that they're in. Great success, great luck to PayCargo, and look forward to seeing you somewhere live very, very, very soon.
Likewise, Chris. Great chatting with you.